Everyone, it's Lisa Starr with the StarrCast Podcast, and we would be remiss if at the beginning of the year we did not come to that perennial topic of trends. You know, January, February, everybody's trend list is out, and the one that we most wait for is that of the Global Wellness Summit. So I am so fortunate today that the godmother of that effort, Susie Ellis, CEO and founder of the Global Wellness Summit, is joining us to talk about this year's 10 trends and how they apply in our wellness industry. So welcome, Susie.
Thank you, Lisa. Happy to be here.
Well, we're so happy to have you. As I said, the trends came out last week at an event in New York, the first ever Global Wellness broadcast live from Times Square. That was really fun. And we learned the trends that we all eagerly await as the fall drags into winter and we think what will be ahead, because your team at the Global Wellness Summit is so good at looking beyond the obvious. You know, it's easy to come up with these top 10 lists and you can rifle through any number of spa or wellness or salon trends and see pretty much the same topics. But the Global Wellness Summit does it so much better and deeper and look ahead. How is it that that's possible, Susie, with your team?
Well, I think that, first of all, we've done it for a very long time, and we really have the intention of looking ahead. We find, just reporting on what is trending, we leave that to other people, but we like to push ahead and look ahead and almost predict, because what we do is we have a network of people around the world. First of all, the Global Wellness Summit, when we have our events, we have people from, countries all over the world. So we have a global viewpoint, more so than just, a country viewpoint. I think that makes a difference. And so, and our trend, Beth McGroarty is our key trend writer, but we, use other trend writers also. And we pay attention to what we see trending all year round. I have a notebook, and I think, Beth does too, that, whenever I come across something, all year, I make a note thinking, that's kind of interesting. And then when we have our summit, we bring all these people together, and a lot of things come up at the summit that also informs the trends. So I think because we have a lot of input and we have a global view, and we do have some really good writers, and I guess we now have some confidence over the years that we've been, our crystal ball has been pretty good.
Well, we are, again, so fortunate to have this sort of big picture vision. And as you say, very global and from different viewpoints. It takes a lot of people to put this together. So we're going to walk through this year's 10 trends. Susie will tell us what the trend was, and I may ask her a question or two, or we'll talk about how it applies in your business, and we'll see what we learn. You ready?
I am.
So trend number 1 is called dirty wellness, which I thought at first meant something else, but I love what it does mean.
Well, exactly. Dirty wellness is, the subhead is the health of the world's soil and the impact of soil exposure on human health become far more important. Think soil bathing. This trend was written by Beth McGroarty. She's our VP of Research and Forecasting. And, Beth is on the West Coast of the US. And I find that to be a real advantage because there's a lot of things that happen on the West Coast. It's kind of a trend,
Very much so.
Very much, so sometimes she has a sense of where things are going that, very few other people do. So I'm always interested in the trends. And this is the one that she had suggested that she feels is really happening and is important because, it's not just now about organic, it is about the soil, that there's a lot more science that is showing that the health of the soil is what's really important. Mm-hmm. The thing in the trend, and it's, well written, and there's lots of information and lots of examples. But the thing that stuck out for me is when she said, eating organic, you might be getting, fruits and vegetables, you might be getting empty calories. And I thought, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
I go and I choose even organic. Sometimes I choose organic fruits and vegetables, thinking I'm really nourishing myself. And now to think that, oh my gosh, that might not have a lot of nutrients in it if it's from soil that doesn't have a lot of nutrients. So we have to pay attention more to the soil. And the whole regenerative farming and that sort of thing is being talked about. So that is a trend, and I think it's something to pay attention to. Uh, and I'm going to be more aware when I'm shopping, and there's a whole ecosystem around that has to do with whether it's products or probiotics, prebiotics, um, bathing in soil,
Mhm.
clay, masks, and so on. um, Paying attention to the soil is a trend for this year.
Well, it makes perfect sense when you think about it because in Beth's way, kind of looking higher up the food chain. And as you say, I also choose organic food when I can, especially produce. But you don't think about the conditions it was grown in, other than that it's pesticide free. But if it is grown in soil that has no nutrients, well, as you say, what's the point? It's empty calories and it may not be helping us or hurting us. So I like that idea of regenerative agriculture, just like we were talking about regenerative travel just a year or two ago. What we have to kind of look further back and make sure that we are doing the best practices for the planet and the future. And this makes a lot of sense. It's about restoring soil biodiversity. It's not just going out and gardening. Now we're speaking to spa and wellness businesses who are not about to grow organic produce in biodiverse soil in their places. How does this apply? But I think it's an education point here. Some of these are actionable and some of these trends are more for us to understand so we can educate our clients as well. This is an idea that both of us said, oh, of course, it makes perfect sense. Why didn't we think of it before? So imagine if we can teach all the people that come into our places about thinking about that. Where are you shopping more locally, right? Which, are you making sure that the farms are clean and have biodiverse practices? And how much can you do that? It's difficult to tell. We don't have that much transparency in our food chain at this point, but it's important to think about, okay, are we getting nutrients from these, and how can we teach people to be aware of that? Maybe when we serve a bowl of fruit at a spa, we have a little placard that says this came from a biodiverse farm, which makes people think about
Yeah, and I think that I think products, I mean, I have to give a shout out to Comfort Zone,
it. Oh, yes.
Davide Bellotti from Italy. He has put so much emphasis on this regenerative, farming and diversity and helping the planet, and so his products, I mean, and there are other companies I'm sure too, but he's just been very vocal about it. If a place is using Comfort Zone products, that has a whole story about this, that a place can help educate people about, not only to sell the products. I mean, the products will sell themselves, but it helps tell the story. And they have a lot of materials, and they do a lot of education. So I just think that even the name Dirty Wellness, we've talked so much about clean. Clean has been a topic in spas and wellness for a long time, and of course with hygiene and with the pandemic and so on. But there's also the I'll just give you a personal example. My mother, my parents were from Germany, and we grew up in Illinois, my sister and brother and I, and we were not very wealthy in any way, and we actually lived on a farm.
Hmm.
And I remember one time, I'm eating a salad that my mom served in the evening, and there was some dirt in the salad. And so I pointed it out. Oh, and my mother just said, well, just eat it. It's good for you. And I thought, oh, okay. So, but she knew, and I think a lot of our, other generations knew that a little dirt is actually probably good for you. It's, it helps your immune system, and of course she was irritated that I was pointing it out because that was not, very polite. But in retrospect, I realized because I've also met a lot of people who've, had wipes and they've wiped everything down all their lives.
And we see them more than ever now.
Exactly. And so, and then when I look at my immune system compared to, people who are wiping everything, I'm thinking, I probably, probably eating some of that dirt from the salad, and living on a farm where there was, that kind of a ambiance probably was good for my immune system.
Well, so, Susie, that reminds me of a funny, not story, but sort of a legend that I've heard told from French mothers who would take a piece of bread and wipe it on the floor and give it to their children as a way to build immunity. Like the point being, and I'm not accusing just French women of doing that, but a little germs never hurt us. They help you build your system. So kudos to that. Let's have a little more dirt in our lives, right?
I had not heard that about the bread, but it makes sense to, I think even when a baby is born, there's a lot of germs that, become part of the birth process, and that's helpful to building immune. And we certainly have talked about building immune systems, with the pandemic. So anyway, I think this is kind of an interesting trend and, kind of relaxing in a way. You don't have to, get rid of every,
right,
germ,
right.
And, you can be a little bit more playful. And then, there's some examples in the trend, the playgrounds that have purposely been put together with dirt and, fruitful dirt for kids to play in, So
That's
it's
good.
kind of fun.
When I see those playgrounds covered with macadam, I think, how enticing is that? Let's have a little more dirt. So here's to dirty wellness. All right, let's move on to trend number 2, which is toxic muscularity comes clean. Do explain.
Yes, and the subhead on this, which explains it a little bit more, is how bulging biceps and rippling abs have had a negative ripple effect on male body image. And this was written by Jamie Miller. And I think this is a fascinating read because, we've talked so often in our industry about, body image. And oftentimes it has to do with women, with teens, with girls, with, but what he points out is that there's a huge, huge body image problem for guys. And I certainly have not thought about that a lot, but after reading his trend, I realized that, and in fact, that the numbers like, 50%, 70% of guys have, had feelings of inferiority because of their bodies. And for them, it's about being more muscular and leaner. That's what the guys are looking for. And that they can get in the same kind of a cycle that we know that women can get into, where they look in the mirror and they don't like what they see, and then they go after a different look with a lot of energy and maybe overdoing, and can end up with dysmorphia about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that just being aware that this is, and a lot of it has been happening because of social media and because of all the images. I mean, when you think about men, in magazines, it's it's six packs and bulging muscles, and that's more now than it was like 30, 40 years ago. And now with, all the images and people taking selfies and whatever, there's more and more pressure. And guys, they're intimidated also when all of these, male celebrities and so on are shown with that certain image that, let's face it, very few people can really live up to that.
Well, I thought it was really key to bring this out because, as you say, we've seen all the social media stories about how it's affecting women and teens, but you never hear about it from the male perspective. And we are used to seeing, the movie stars that are, cut and buff, but there are plenty of other everyman guys out there that still do well, but they don't attract the visual attention. And I just never thought about the effect that has on the male psyche because, they don't seem to be affected that much like women are by these things. But good for Jamie for bringing that out, and that now we have to be more accepting of all body types. I think it's another extension of the whole diversity angle that we've been immersed in for the last 2 years. I mean, not just skin color, but shape and size and all of that, just more accepting of humans in whatever shape they are, and that there's no shame in that. Steroid use and IPED use has been on the rise, and it is effective. You can certainly see what happens, but there's a lot of damage afterwards as too. We don't want men to have eating disorders either. So in terms of how a business uses this information, one thing that comes to me is perhaps in your marketing materials, you're not showing those kinds of men. You have older gentlemen or thinner gentlemen or different kinds of people that you're promoting those visuals for, and not just the buff guy with the white towel around his waist. We do need to get away from that stereotype and make sure that everyone feels accepted, right?
I think that's a good idea, Lisa, in the marketing, because that has been, I was talking with my sister this morning about how things have changed a little bit for women who are larger. Even at the Super Bowl, in the Super Bowl halftime show, there were, all different size girls or women dancing. It wasn't all, very, very thin, dancers. And so, when you see more celebrities and people that are different size, I think that's really, kind of helpful for people's psyche. Not to say that it's healthy to be, have a lot of extra weight, but, recognizing that it's not natural for everyone to be, a thin, certain, look as a woman. And it's the same thing for men. So, yeah, using different men in ads, I think, is good. And I think, as Jamie points out, it's education. Even, recognizing that there are eating disorders that, men have, but it's also teens. I think he talks a lot about teens because that's when, of course, men want to be attractive to women, and they can get very, very, mentally affected by the pressure to look a certain way. So I think, some education, I think about a spa or a wellness center, maybe having a talk about this idea. And you mentioned steroids, and that's a big thing because, the steroids, like you said, they do make a difference. And that's what's produced some of these, Arnold Schwarzenegger looking, muscles. But now that men are aging, there's a lot of use of extra steroid to keep, feeling sexually vital and so on. So there's a lot to be discussed in the male discussion on looking and feeling good.
Well, I'm also thinking of the application in fitness. I mean, many of our listeners are involved in fitness, and you have these hulking guys walking around the gym as the trainers. Perhaps it's time for some more average looking guys to also say, you can be fit. I mean, look at runners. Look at people that run marathons. They're lean. They're not big hulking guys, but they're certainly super fit. So it's great. It's great to introduce this discussion in terms of males and how they fit in, and let's make sure that they all feel comfortable as well. Let me just say, as we go on and move into the third trend, that all of these trend reports, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much information in the written report that you can find on the Global Wellness Summit site. So Susie, trend number 3.
Trend number 3 is from wellness tech to technological wellness. a fresh take on digital health. And Skylar Hubler and Cecilia Gurr wrote this. And I think the bottom line for me on this, and I think it's a very good point, there's so much discussion right now about technology. And technology has been fantastic in so many ways. Right now, I'm getting ready to go on a trip and I'm using, Time Shifter. So, it's an app, which is fantastic, and it's helping me from a physiological point of view prepare for my international trip, so I won't have jet lag. And then all the smart watches and people charting how many steps they walk, and their blood pressure, and you can heart monitor. There's so many things you can measure, and those are all things that are talked about. But their point in this trend is that what we're needing to even talk maybe even more about, especially now, is having balance in the use of technology, because a lot of people have become addicted to their to their phones, to their technology. And I see this especially with young people, teens. You can hardly get them off their phone. It is just constant. They're on, they're chatting, they're taking pictures of everything and sending, and their whole lives have sort of moved to to technology. And so just like with nutrition, and this is a point they make in the trend, with nutrition, we have such an abundance. We can eat so many things that, for most people in the world, not everyone, but you have to find a balance where you say, no, I've eaten enough, or I'm not going to eat, all the time or late at night or whatever. You have to find a balance. And so their point is that we have to start talking a lot more about the balance of the use of technology for health, and especially for kids. And and some countries are starting to put limitations on because people are recognizing. And then, of course, having Facebook and different the media conversations about the fact that a lot of these companies know that the technology is addictive, and they're feeding that, and the gaming, they've figured out ways to keep people addicted. And that's the trend, is that, okay, let's look beyond just what the technology is and how valuable it is, but what is it doing to us because people are using it too much.
Well, I love the point that Skylar and Cecilia made about putting health at the center of how we engage with tech, in thinking about that first. To your point, when you're out in public anywhere in the world, everyone has a device in their hand. And it's sort of become an extension of ourselves, to the point where my children, who are in their 20s, they don't know how to drive anywhere. They don't know their way around because they look it up on the map. And I said, someday these are going to not be here and you're going to not know how to get somewhere. But to that point, not to throw my kids under the bus, my daughter will say to me when we're somewhere together and I'm taking a picture with my phone, she'll say, Mom, put down your phone and live in the moment. So they're aware too. And I think that's a great thing. We have to limit the tech intake in the same way we limit food intake, which is the point also made in the trend. So of course it's important and it's great to know these things, but we need to have that space of understanding when it's too much. Certainly spa environments are not tech friendly. And I've often been in spas where they have a no cell phone zone sign, or, at Mandarin, they will take your phone from you and put it in a little cute case and give it a spa treatment while you're having your spa treatment. So encouraging people to sort of step away from that. We are increasingly using tech in the operations of our facilities, but we can't let that come between us and the personal touch with clients that we're known for.
And I think that that it's more of an issue now than it was in the beginning. I've worked with a lot of destination spas as you have as well. And, in the beginning, it was pretty easy to say, okay, this is a tech-free zone, no internet, put your phone away. Well, that just doesn't work anymore because the phones have become so integral to people staying connected with their families. And, there's a lot more reason to not take someone's phone away.
Right.
So there has to be a balance. So a business has to find that balance. And the idea of just having a totally no, even if you do a wilderness thing and, yes, you're disconnected. Well, it's not so easy to take people these days and totally take their technology away. So we have to find a balance. And it's good that there's more conversation about that.
Well, I agree. And to your point, encouraging people, like, please limit your use as it affects those around you. And you'll see that a lot at concerts, think about the people around you. So again, raising awareness about not going too far, all things in moderation, right? Let's move on to trend number 4.
Trend number 4 is senior living disrupted, a wrinkle in time no more. This came out of our, we did a symposium on wellness, real estate, and communities last year.
Oh, that was fabulous.
And because that is, that was a trend that we identified years ago that would happen. And, I will say that our trend predictions oftentimes are ahead. I remember when we first came out with the idea of a wellness community, or I think in the very beginning, many years ago, we called it spa real estate. People were saying, well, what is that? But we were seeing that people were starting to want to live in places where health and at that time spa and then later wellness was a focus and with other like-minded people. So anyway, we did this this symposium in New York in, I think it was September last year. And we had, quite a few people come, this even during pandemic times, and a lot of people virtually. And the discussion was wellness, real estate, and communities. And one of the things we found is that the senior living aspect was really ripe for disruption because first of all, a lot of people are aging in a lot of countries, not every country, but most countries. And so where seniors are living, has become more and more important. And in our country, a lot of what has happened is that the seniors have gone to places that are senior living oriented, and they can be pretty nice, with activities and so on. But nowadays, the baby boomers and I'm one of them, of course, who are aging, are not interested in necessarily living in these places. And one of the key reasons is because it's not natural. It's like all seniors. People don't want to live.
That's no fun.
Exactly. All other seniors necessarily. Some do. So one of the trends that we're seeing is a real fresh experimentation of different ways to help people, live, age at home or be part of a, pocket neighborhood, et cetera. And one of the key things is that it's people have found that it's much healthier to have an intergenerational living situation, so that people are not sequestered away with just all seniors, but that there's young people there, and then there's models where the young people are helping take care of the older people, and the older people are maybe babysitting, and there's new ways that is being looked at, and I guess Chip Conley is somebody who actually spoke about this on our trend broadcast that we did, which also is available for anybody who wants to hear the trends from the authors. We have all that available on our website, so people can get the trend report, the full report, which is over 100 pages, and hear from the authors. But Chip Conley, he is all about a new way of living, and he's put together that he calls regenerative communities, where it is intergenerational, and it is about people examining their purpose and mixing people together in creative, fun ways. I just think it's, I hope they really get this together by the time I'm ready to go live somewhere where I might, need some assistance, but not have it be looking exactly the way things look now.
Which can be bleak, to your point. I mean, the way when Laura Powell wrote this trend, she talks about how this is how it used to be, right? And in blue zones, you see this where people live longer because they are mixed with generations. And the way it was in the old country, right? The grandparents, the parents, the children. I've seen some examples mostly in other countries. I think in Dutch or Scandinavia, they are mixing senior living with kindergartens. So the kids can have the influence of the elders, and the elders have the delight of the youngsters, and they just don't want to be defined by age anymore. And that this is not to say it's everyone. Maybe some people do want to live in a quiet place with people who play bridge with them and do elder activities, I say with quotes. But I think that it is healthier to think about how to stay vibrant and relevant longer. And that does include this intentional intergenerationality term that Laura came up with.
And I think we have in our wellness where we need to realize, and this is something that Dr. Michael Roizen brought up at our Global Wellness Summit in Boston, is that, he said 90 is the new 40.
I know, we loved hearing that.
So, but we have to realize people are living longer. And they're living healthier longer. So we have to look at new models of having people live in a vibrant, productive way. And I will say also that now, with this issue of labor shortage, a lot of seniors can continue to be in the labor force, which was not the case years ago. So that has to be rethought in terms of the living as well. So I think it's actually a rather optimistic trend for aging, that there's more attention being paid to, the issue of loneliness or the issue of health around senior living. So senior living disrupted is I think a very exciting trend.
Well, and to close with your point on the labor shortage, these people are often delightful guides and spa attendants. They're welcoming, they're like everyone's grandmother, and they can be great parts of your team. So something to think about as we need people. And they're doing it because they want to, not because they need to. All right, let's talk about trend number 5.
Well, the fifth trend is on travel, wellness travel, seekers welcome. Post-pandemic, travelers are ready for adventure and engagement. And, one of the things, Lisa, that we found, and, we keep track trend-wise of, what the travel industry is doing. When we sort of thought we were kind of out of the pandemic around September, October, whatever, before Omicron came along, all of a sudden, people were like, they were so ready to travel. And there were certain places that were just booked up, instantly. What we realized then, even though with Omicron, things sort of, shut down a little bit again, there is a pent-up demand for travel. Travel is something people really, really have as a desire within them, and that is existing. So, and then the research is showing, and I think it was American Express that did a survey that showed something like 86% of people who are planning to travel are wanting to include improving their mental well-being with their next travel situation. So the reality is that wellness travel has such a robust future, because nowadays people, especially also with the pandemic, they care a lot about their health and wellness, and they recognize how important it is to not have issues that could compromise their immune system. So wellness has become an issue for almost every traveler. So the future is bright if you're involved with any of that. And I mean, if you're in the wellness industry, you are, because people will come to you from, whether it's domestic travel or international travel, and people are ready for adventure and engagement. And I know, Lisa, you're starting to travel a little bit, right?
I am. I mean, I've been traveling domestically about a year now, but there's many more international trips planned this year, which I intend by hell or high water to go on. I know both of us, it's just like we're used to traveling, and I love my family and where I live, but I need to see the world. I was interested that this trend was authored by Elaine Glusak, who's a travel writer, right? She's not a wellness person, but she looks at travel and how wellness is really braided into the whole experience. I mean, Susie, just think it was a few years ago where we talked about wellness and the primary and secondary wellness seekers, and now it's sort of it's just always there. People want to be healthy, and it seems that people that travel are those that want to get out and experience nature, but also do it in a healthy way.
Yeah, and you mentioned nature. That is a trend that we've talked about for years, and a lot of trend lists have nature, and of course that's very much a trend, and that is something I think every business should be thinking about, even if they're in a urban setting. That people, what's happened with the pandemic is it has absolutely affected people's bodies and minds in a way that nature can really be valuable for that. So people want to get out in nature. So anything that a person or a business can do to get outdoors, to bring things indoors that are plants and that sort of thing, anything related to nature is certainly something that people are craving, and I think that's going to be for the foreseeable future.
I agree. Okay, trend number 6. What do you have for us?
Innovative tech closing the gender gap in medical research. And this was written by Rena Raphael. This is
smart
about,
lady she is.
Exactly. She is a smart lady, and this trend is a smart trend. It is about AI apps and wearables that are collecting data for a wide range of women's health conditions. I think it's become more clear to people, and we had a panel at our Global Wellness Summit in Boston with Carol Lee, who ran that, and from WHAM, about the issue that the research that has been done medically has oftentimes not been up to par for women. They used to use only male mice, and so many of the research that was conducted would bring up results for men, not for women.
I remember that panel. Sorry to interrupt you, but it was fascinating. I mean, there were several things at the summit around this, but these ladies were sharp, and I never knew that. I think it was only in the last 20 or 30 years that they started using women in studies, and instead they were treated like small men, rather than that we have a different physiology. So that was really interesting.
You're absolutely right. And that's now becoming something more people are aware of. But what Rena points out, and this is so smart, she's made the connection between, okay, how do we fix that? Because, it can take decades to fix that. But her point is that that's the effort to fix that is being made now and made more possible because of technology. So you have, for example, new things like vaginal kits that can go into a home, and then the results can be pooled, and they can pull together a lot more data from women without having to do these very lengthy expensive studies of groups and so on. So she brings up all kinds of examples, and in the trend there's a lot of different technology things that she mentions. But the good news is that there's more of an effort and more awareness that we really need to do a lot more about getting women involved with research studies and looking at results and benefiting from those, rather than being treated as a small male.
Somebody that I was with at the summit, a woman, went back to her workplace with the males she had been with, and they said, I'm thinking of that Stacey London presentation on menopause that we had at the summit, which is hilarious, by the way. And they said, that's what you go through? We had no idea, So it's really great to take the blinds off of these female male issues. We've in spas and wellness centers for a long time have had, this tiny men's section on the menu that has the men's facial and the men's pedicure or whatever, knowing that our audience is broadly women. But I think maybe this opens the door for more treatments that are specifically for women's issues, because we know more and we have more data now and we can treat them better.
You're right. And menopause is one of the big discussions. Again, the aging population, so, and there's good news about that because there's more known, and Rena is really a champion of this. And I think it's a very interesting trend.
For sure. All right, let's move on to trend number 7.
Well, this is a fun one. This is urban bathhouses and wellness playgrounds. And this was written by Cassandra Kavanaugh. She's part of our team. And the subhead is affordable wellness is coming to a city near you. I mean, the bottom line is that urban bathhouses and wellness playgrounds are becoming part of the whole wellness ecosystem. And these are places that are large. There are many that exist, but there are new ones coming up. And the good news about these places, and Lisa, you and I have been to some, is that they're much more affordable. You can go for a whole day for, $30, $40, that kind of thing. And they have maybe thousands of people that will go. And they're being reimagined in a way. I mean, there's the whole history of, thermal and springs from Europe, and Asia has their the bathhouses in Japan, the onsens, and China does a lot with springs as well. But now places are putting these fun areas together, spending a lot of money, and then because a lot of people come, the cost can be a little bit lower, and more people can participate in things that are healthy around water, around massage underwater, around fun, which is part of health as well. So that's kind of a fun trend to see, I think.
Totally. Susie, I was really struck by this movement a few years ago when I was in Tokyo, and I think it was 9 or 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday, I went to a bathhouse and I could not believe what I saw. It was, you go to the bathhouse in Tokyo, you get a robe, and it's kind of a little militaristic. You have to be a certain way and follow the rules. Everyone puts their kimono on. And there's a food court, and it's lined with little restaurants, all basically selling the same food, and it's full of young people. This was the point. Full of young people on a Saturday night, having their meal and then going to do the water treatments, either co-ed or separate. But I thought, this is so great that these young people are not in a bar watching a soccer game, right? They're in a place that's healthy and they're enjoying it with each other in a communal way. And I think that communal angle is key to this trend. They need, young people, well, all people need places to go to do things that are healthy and fun and that they can do together. And this is perfect for that.
It is so true. And I think we should also mention the Saunaaufguss, which is another part of this trend that, because the communal aspect, and this is something that, and Saunaaufguss, which we should explain a little bit,
Yes.
Is a trend that actually began in Europe, Norway and those areas where, Finland, where saunas are, very much part of the living. What has developed is sort of the idea of taking a sauna with lots of other people, and then there's a fun aspect to it. And in Europe, what they have is saunameisters. These are people that help the sauna experience become more heightened by being in the sauna, waving towels around, and infusing the air with different aromas and so on. And over time, what's happened is that this has become sort of a show, and they even have competitions for the
World
sauna
Championships of sauna. Who knew?
Exactly, the World Championships of Saunaaufguss. Aufguss means ladling water, making the sauna experience heightened with water infusions and so on. And so anyway, but when we saw this, when we did the Global Wellness Summit in Austria, we had our whole, this was a big deal. We had some of the famous sauna meisters come and do a demonstration. And it was just, and then we had experiences where people would go into a sauna with 50 other people. Now, I will say in Austria, it's, everyone's nude.
Yes.
That was
it's not for the faint of heart.
It's not for the faint of heart. However, that's more in the Germanic countries.
Right.
But now what's happened is that this idea of sauna aufguss is going outside of just, this Germanic area. And in particular, there's one, the first one in the US is in Las Vegas. And Lisa, you and I experienced it together.
And that was so fun. It was sauna aufguss with the perfect Las Vegas infusion of entertainment, really well done, well built and constructed by Design for Leisure. And the lights, the sound, the entertainment of the Saunameister, really a great experience.
Yes, and what's happening is the term event sauna, I think, which they use there.
Right.
It was at the Iswana Spa at Resorts World, wasn't it?
Resorts World, right.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a great experience. And so this whole idea of bringing people together, in bathhouses, wellness playgrounds, and saunas, that's a trend. I think it's really fun and exciting.
Yes, we all do that. More sauna, the better. Okay, so the next trend, number 8, next gen naturalism. Please explain.
Yes, this is the return of self-reliance. And this is, again, Skylar Hubler and Cecilia Gurr. And the bottom line on this trend is that what's happened, as partially because of the pandemic, people have kind of felt like, they really need to sort of be self-sufficient. What's happened with, you go to the store and,
the hoarding of toilet paper.
Right, hoarding, whatever. So what's happened, and that has welled up within a lot of people, is this desire to be self-sufficient. And so there's sort of a survivalism piece that's happened. And as a result, they're doing retreats where people go out in the woods and, learn survival tactics, and in general, people becoming a little bit more self-reliant. So that is a whole trend that I think is interesting and to watch. And probably we've all been touched by that because of what's happened. And, you look at the news, and that's the other issue with the news is everywhere. And a lot of times it's bad news. And so it's normal to sort of, take stock of like, okay, how am I going to get through this? Like, what if there is a war over here? And what if, this happens or that happens? So, so this whole self-reliance is a trend that we thought was valuable to point out.
Well, the angle of it that I really resonated with was the simplification of life and consumption, and sort of a no frills wellness approach, because we have just layer upon layer of things and experiences, and we need this wallpaper and this not enough, we need this better music and this better tech, and it's always bigger, better. And that's difficult to keep up with and mentally stressful. I like the way that this sort of harkens back to, okay, let's just go back to what's simple and pleasing. Think about Scandinavian design and sort of the negative space around it, and how that really helps clear the brain. And so I think this is a very timely, great observation by these ladies.
Totally agree. And in the last few minutes, the last couple trends, number 9 is health and wellness coaching gets certified. And this is a very important one, also written by Beth McRorty, who's our VP of Research and Forecasting. Coaches trained in the art and science of motivating healthy changes have been the missing link in both healthcare and wellness. This is an interesting look at the whole coaching arena, because I think most of us are aware that there are, fitness coaches, there's health coaches, life coaches, wellness coaches. There's, a lot of people using the term coaching. But what Beth points out is that now there is more of an emphasis on coaching in a way that really inspires behavior change, because that's what's really the missing link. I mean, the healthcare, the medical profession, they say, you should lose weight, you should, improve your immune system, you should eat healthier, and so on. But, people need help doing that. Or at least people do better when they have help doing that. And so coaching is a key thing, but coaching can be, telling people what to do, or, as Beth points out, the more successful way is where there is the catalyzing people's own inner desires to make changes for lasting lifestyle changes. And so what's happening is, like Mayo Clinic and Duke and places are certifying people in coaching, where the coaching is much more thoughtful than just, somebody sharing what, has been their positive experience.
Well, it makes perfect sense if you think that we're all so focused on being well, but we really don't all know how to get there, that we would need coaches. And I think the idea of having a coach has become much more accepted and mainstream than in the past. So wonderful that they're being certified. I'm struck by the conversation at the summit that Michael Roizen had with Richard Davidson. And they talked about how difficult behavior change is, and having even Roizen's 6 simple steps to being healthy. And yet Davidson said only 4% of nurses can even do it. And these are people who know how to be healthy, and yet they can't make themselves do it. So we definitely need coaches. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength and courage when you invite help. And this has an obvious tie-in for spas and wellness businesses to be providing these options for our guests. So we have the last trend, number 10.
Number 10 is wellness welcomes the metaverse. And this is a trend that I wrote, actually. Health and wellness are attractive to the metaverse, which needs to diversify from gaming. So a lot of people have been talking about the metaverse, and I felt that, after attending CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, and, seeing what was being discussed, that is something that I felt like, let's put this on the table for the health and wellness arena. Because the metaverse is a conversation that is taking place. And what is it? And so in the trend, what I did is I really tried to share, what are the definitions? And there's lots of different definitions out there. And as we learned at CES, the metaverse is more of an idea at this point. It's not like it is a thing that has arrived. It's somewhere that, things are going, which is more of an immersive experience with the internet. And in particular, I have found, because I've been in this industry for a long time, that our wellness arena, spa and so on, we have not always been known to be on top of technology or ahead of the game. We've been a little bit more lagging behind, because we believe so much in touch and the things that don't necessarily need to include technology. However, I feel like we've found, we really need to keep up. And in fact, it's good for us to be leaders in some of the technology that we can be used in both health and wellness to help people, reach a healthier place. So therefore, I thought, let's add this as our 10th trend, so that we can hopefully inspire our industry to look at the metaverse, to just, not poo-poo it, not, like in the beginning in the 90s when the internet happened, and, instead of just, well, I'm not going to pay attention to that, or I don't, instead of waiting for it to develop and then learning about it, I'd like to see people, let's read up about the metaverse. Let's, try what's going on in, VR and AR, and learn about these things, because there's lots of ways that could factor into what we do in helping people with their health and wellness.
I'm thinking about, you spoke of CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, about that room that we went into from one of those big Asian brands that was all immersive and changing the floors, the ceiling, the walls, and you were in a forest, and then you were in flowers, and you just sat there and enjoyed it. I mean, that is a true immersive experience, and there's no reason we can't take aspects with VR or AR into our facilities and give people a treat. That's really also great for the brain. So wonderful, Susie, just great information. I feel like we could have talked about each trend for much longer, but people will need to download and read the whole report to get the big skinny. It's really important to know and think ahead, and we're so grateful to you and your team for doing that for us, doing the hard and heavy lifting so we can think ahead about how to fine tune our businesses in the coming year. In closing, I'd just like to ask a little bit about how it started. You know, you've been the trend leader. It's been, I don't know how many years we've been waiting for these trend reports. How did that all start for you?
I think that, I've been in this arena since the 70s, which, it's quite a long time now. I used to say 4 decades, but it's almost like 5 now. And I have seen the value of sort of seeing ahead rather than just, being, I mean, it's been exciting because there's so many developments. And it was really 15 years ago that Beth and I started working together. That was when we were involved with Spa Finder, that we would do a trends report. Because at that time, believe it or not, it's hard to believe now, there weren't any trend predictions for spas, for example.
Right.
So we just put a list together of what we were seeing, and we would come out with our top 10 list. And what we realized is that it was really we did have a calling for it, a ability because of our background. Because I mean, when you've been in something for a long time, it is easier to see the future than if you're totally not in it. And so sharing that has been valuable. And then along the line, I would say that we've gotten more confident because, we would step out and do things like, we talked about wellness tourism in 2013. And, people, I mean, we had people on our board that didn't think that was going to be a trend, that, well, this isn't really going to, happen. We thought, well, no, we really think it is. The same thing with wellness real estate and, and then, the CBD, other things that we've predicted along the way. So we've just found that it has helped people for us to share what we see because we've sort of fine-tuned ways to do that now. And I think that it has, people can really rely on, these are trends. When I look back, did we really miss something? Not really. I mean, some became more of movements than others. I remember when we came out with forest bathing as a trend and people go, what? And, that was, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago.
Right.
We were talking about forest bathing, going out in the forest and the value of that. So, so we do it because it's fun and we know it has value. And that's why we also, now sell the report because it's a lot of work. Like you said, I mean, 100 pages written by good writers that really research. I mean, this is not just, sitting around and, this is, months and months of research and links and examples. I mean, the media looks at these trends, all year long, and then they write articles. So there's going to be articles written about dirty wellness and, toxic muscularity and, the urban bathhouses and all of that. These will have a whole year of, us bringing them forward. What we do also with our Trendium, which goes out every, once a month, we show where in the media there's been something written about certain trends. So it kind of helps keep them alive and also helps people digest them more and more over time. So yeah, that's kind of, it was an evolution, an answer to your question of how it started. And it's just, gathered momentum.
Well, I think like all good work, it's the kind of thing that when you read the trends, you say, oh, of course, duh, right? And yet you didn't articulate it yourself before that. It's like your team is so good at spotting it, doing the research, pulling together the real examples, the photos. I mean, as you say, the 100-page report really goes into detail about these. We've just skimmed the surface. So thank you again for sort of calling all through all that noise for us in our industry to focus on what's relevant to us. And thank you again for your time before you fly off. We're so appreciative, Susie Ellis, co-founder and CEO of the Global Wellness Summit, as well as the Global Wellness Institute, for everything that you do for our industry.
Well, thank you, Lisa. And thank you also for being willing to contribute to our discussion, because you have so much experience. I have so much admiration for the fact that you travel to so many businesses. So that helps bring the trends alive.
Well, thank you, Susie. It was a pleasure, and have safe travels.
Thank you.